I walked into that conference room thinking I was about to get a routine performance review. Quick check-in, maybe a pat on the back for shaving $20 million off logistics costs. Amanda Greaves was already sitting there when I walked in. Folder closed, arms crossed, lip curled like she smelled something bad. "Jack, have a seat." No small talk, no smile. Just that fake professional tone she used when she was about to cut someone off at the knees. I sat, pulled out my notes, didn't even get a chance to open them. "We've decided to restructure our sourcing strategy," she said, like she was talking about rearranging furniture. "We don't need your offshore network anymore." I blinked. "Sorry, what?" She opened her folder, started reading names off like a hit list. Petra in Bucharest, Rico in Osaka, that textile firm in Medellin. We're terminating all current contracts with immediate effect. I leaned forward. "Amanda, those suppliers represent 18 months of misallocated resources," she snapped. "You've been coddling vendors who barely speak English while ignoring domestic capacity. We're done shipping half the world just to feel good about helping foreigners." My hands went cold. My mouth was dry. I'd spent the last year and a half on planes, in dirty taxis, eating things I couldn't pronounce, building trust with people who'd rebuilt their businesses from scratch, people who'd bent over backward to meet Rockwell's standards, and she was wiping them out with a smile. She clicked her pen. "You'll assist in transition planning. Procurement will shift to domestic by end of quarter. You'll still have a job, if you want it." That last line hit me harder than anything else. It wasn't just about money. It was the smugness, like I'd wasted company time playing Mr. International Peace Corps instead of doing real business. Amanda Greaves. She wasn't just a VP with a budget axe. She was the same kind of person who'd gutted my dad's livelihood, one slow cut at a time. "Before we start, how's your day going, and where are you joining from?" I walked out without another word, didn't go back to my desk, didn't answer emails. I knew exactly where I was headed. Not home, not HR. The bathroom, locked the stall door, pulled out my phone, and started making calls. As the phone rang, I had just enough time to remember exactly how we got here. It was fall of 2008. I was 19, stacking pallets at a warehouse in Kankakee, Illinois. Dad had just sold his firm to this bigger Chicago outfit, some corporate Frankenstein built off a half-dozen smaller consulting shops. The merger was supposed to give him stability. What it gave him was Amanda Greaves. She wasn't even VP back then, just a director with a shiny MBA and a pitch deck full of buzzwords. But she came in swinging, called the old school guys overhead, said clients wanted fresh ideas, agile deliverables, whatever the hell that meant. Dad was 57, had 3 decades of client wins under his belt, some Fortune hundreds in there too. But Amanda made it sound like he was dead weight. She'd challenge him in meetings just to watch him stumble. "That's not how we do things anymore, Tom," she'd say with this fake smile, pity voice, like she was trying to help put down a wounded dog. He stopped coming home on time. Some nights I'd hear his car pull in, then nothing. He'd just sit in the driveway with the engine running, said he was thinking. But I could see the bags under his eyes, the twitch in his jaw when I asked how work was. Couple weeks later, she reassigned 2 of his biggest accounts to some kid fresh out of DePaul, called it cross-training. My dad started drinking coffee at 10 p.m., just so he could stare at spreadsheets he wasn't allowed to submit anymore. I came home one Saturday, long shift unloading flat screens in the cold, and found him sitting on the porch, just sitting, no book, no phone, just gone behind the eyes. "Dad, what's going on?" He didn't answer, just looked at me like he didn't recognize me. That was the last full conversation we ever had. For the next month, he left every morning at the same time, but I don't think he went inside the building. I found an old lunch thermos in the glove compartment, unopened for weeks. He was just sitting there, every morning in a business suit, trying to convince himself to walk in and get humiliated again. Then came that Thursday, October 2nd. I'll never forget it. I walked in the front door, kicked off my boots, called out for him. Nothing. The coffee pot was still warm. The kitchen smelled like burnt toast. I thought maybe he'd gone out. Then I saw him, slumped forward, head resting on folded arms, like he was sleeping. I knew he wasn't. There were foreclosure notices on the counter, one from a hospital billing office, His company laptop was open, locked out. I didn't even cry at first. I just stood there, staring at him, like the world forgot to keep spinning. The coroner said heart failure, but he didn't need to. I knew what broke it. After the service, I stayed behind. Everybody else had cleared out. I stood over that coffin, and I made him a promise I never said out loud. I'd figure out what people like Amanda really were. I'd learn their games, get close enough to see how they moved, and one day I'd make them feel what they made him feel. Not just failure, not just fear, powerless. That was the day I stopped being a son and started becoming a problem. I didn't know the exact plan yet, but I knew where it started. School. I enrolled at a state college the next semester, took night classes in operations logistics, spent 4 years learning the nuts and bolts of global supply chains, stuff most people found boring as hell, but I didn't. Every term, every customs form, every route map was another piece of leverage I could use down the line. After graduation, I didn't chase fancy titles. I took jobs no one else wanted, spent 10 years bouncing through mid-level roles in procurement and sourcing, especially overseas networks, Vietnam, Turkey, Mexico, places where people still fought tooth and nail to keep their factories running. I wasn't looking for resume boosters. I was collecting tools. Then one afternoon, I saw the job post. Rockwell Dynamics, Global Sourcing Manager. Reporting directly to Amanda Greaves. I didn't even hesitate. I walked into the interview like just another ambitious logistics guy. Clean resume, polite smile, talked efficiency, savings, margins. I made sure to mention I admired her tough leadership style. She ate it up. I got the offer the next morning. Once I was inside, I played it slow. Never corrected her in meetings. Never made myself look smarter. I brought coffee, stayed late, smiled when she took credit for my ideas. Meanwhile, I built the kind of network she didn't even know existed. Small plastics plant outside Bogota, sheet metal shop in rural Croatia, a textiles co-op in Vietnam run by 3 sisters and their grandmother, real people, real grit. They weren't just cheap labor. They were the kind of businesses my dad would have loved. Independent, honest, determined to prove they belonged in the global economy. Every deal I brokered made Rockwell leaner. We cut costs by nearly 40% in under a year. Procurement praised the numbers. Amanda started name-dropping her offshore team to the board, but I didn't care about praise. I wasn't there to make anyone look good. I was laying foundation. Every handshake I made overseas wasn't just business. It was personal. I learned their stories, sent birthday gifts to their kids, flew out in person when nobody asked me to, and I kept track. Every upgrade, every time zone crossed, every late-night call I picked up when things went sideways. Amanda barely noticed. She just liked the line graphs trending down. That's what made it perfect. She thought she was running the show, that I was just another loyal number cruncher helping her look efficient. But I wasn't chasing approval. I was building a fuse. And every week, every contract, every supplier that signed on, I was winding it a little tighter. The fuse needed one more thing, a trigger. So I started rewriting the contracts. Not huge changes, nothing loud or suspicious, just quiet additions buried in the legal sections, coordinated fallback clauses. If one vendor got dropped without proper notice, the rest had the right to exit too, immediately. It sounded like standard industry protection. Any international supplier who'd been burned before would want that. And Amanda, she didn't care. As long as the pricing looked sharp and delivery timelines were tight, she rubber-stamped every one of them. Looks fine. Legal checked it, right? Yep, I'd nod. Standard language. Legal skimmed them, but treated it as boilerplate. Amanda never asked questions and never read past the first page. After that, I hit the road, again and again. Factories in Chiang Mai, Thailand, hot, loud, full of men welding under rusted fans. But every worker knew their job, knew their machines inside and out. I watched one guy repair a busted conveyor belt with nothing but a screwdriver and a leftover sprocket. That place hit quotas Amanda thought were impossible. A machine shop outside Cordoba, Argentina, run by 2 brothers and their mom. Half their equipment came from auctions. Didn't matter, their cuts were cleaner than the domestic vendors Rockwell kept praising. Suppliers across Eastern Europe hit performance levels. Domestic vendors couldn't match. I walked through every line, every floor, took video, took notes, shook hands, ate meals with their families, listened to what they'd survived. Floods, factory closures, labor disputes, currency crashes. These weren't just operations. They were rebuilds, comebacks. They were people like my dad, left behind, underestimated, still fighting. Most of them didn't even know who Amanda was, but they trusted me. I was the guy who showed up, the guy who listened when something broke, who didn't blame them when delays happened, who worked with them, not above them. And I kept receipts, not just contracts. I recorded plant tours, filmed safety upgrades, logged every improvement made on Rockwell's dime, for internal audit purposes, I'd say. One night, over dinner in Monterey, Miguel asked me, "Why do you always come in person?" Most buyers just send emails. I gave him the usual answer. Because trust doesn't grow over Wi-Fi. But the real reason, I needed them to believe in something, not just Rockwell, in me. Because I knew the day was coming when I'd have to make a call. And when I did, they had to say yes without blinking. Back in the States, Amanda was too busy basking in quarterly savings reports to notice what I was doing. At one staff meeting, she laughed and said, "Guess we don't need to speak Polish to beat domestic pricing?" She thought that was clever. I made a note of it. Every arrogant comment, every dismissive joke, every time she brushed off a factory owner's name or mispronounced it like it didn't matter, I logged it quietly, thoroughly. My files were stacked with videos, testimonials, backup quotes, and side-by-side comparisons, showing exactly how these suppliers were saving Rockwell's ass month after month. It wasn't just business anymore. I was wrapping the whole operation in tripwire, legal, operational, emotional. One day, I knew Amanda would get greedy, or careless, or both. And when she did, all I'd have to do was light the match. I shut the stall door, sat on the toilet lid, and pulled out my phone. Rico answered on the second ring. "All good?" he asked. "No, it's time," I said. Clause 24. Immediate withdrawal. Silence for half a second, then, "Understood." I hung up. Next was Petra. She didn't ask questions. "I'll notify the others." "You sure?" "Very." "Okay," she said. "I'll make it clean." Miguel was last. He paused when I gave the signal. "You want this to cascade?" "Yes, full shutdown." He took a breath. "Say no more." Each of them called two more, and those called two more. I sat there for 30 minutes while the network folded in on itself. Fast, but not surprising. They'd been waiting for this call. By lunchtime, 68% of Rockwell's supply chain had gone dark. I didn't say a word. Just walked back to my desk, logged in like nothing happened, and started responding to fake check-in emails from suppliers I knew had already pulled out. The next morning, the building was buzzing like a kicked beehive. Conference rooms filled up. Operations started pulling delivery schedules and couldn't figure out why half the inbound shipments were suddenly marked canceled by vendor. At 10:43 a.m., I got pinged by logistics. "Jack, we've lost contact with 4 key suppliers in the Pacific region. Any idea what's happening?" I typed back. "No clue." Will check Amanda started floating between departments, high heels echoing through the halls. I saw her from my office, phone in one hand, legal pad in the other, pretending she had control. By mid-afternoon, domestic procurement called a huddle. Turns out the replacement vendors Amanda had lined up couldn't deliver. Prices were higher, lead times were trash, and quality reports were already coming back flagged. A batch of components from a stateside plant failed testing in the first 24 hours. She tried to pivot, claimed the offshore vendors had always been unreliable, and this was just a temporary bump. Then came the kicker. A manufacturing manager from assembly walked into the afternoon status call, pale as drywall. "We're out of stock on 22 key components. Line 4 is idle. Line 6 shuts down by Friday." You could hear the silence choke the whole room. Amanda started making calls, trying to chase down emergency backup options. She reached out to domestic vendors who either laughed at the timelines or quoted her double. By the end of the day, Rockwell was on the edge of a full production stall. Then Martin Ellison, the CEO, stepped in. He didn't yell, didn't storm the floor. He just sent an email, closed-door executive review. Monday. All senior leadership, mandatory, no details, no subject line, just that. Amanda tried to save face, pulled the senior staff into a conference room late that night, ran through some half-baked slide deck she'd slapped together in a panic. American first sourcing strategy, she kept repeating, like a prayer. I sat in the back, quiet, watching her sweat. She had no idea what was coming, but I did. Because every vendor she'd just insulted, ghosted, or cut loose had signed those clauses herself. Her initials, her timestamps, her approval. This wasn't a bump. It was the beginning of collapse. And Monday morning, she'd have to explain it. Monday came with gray skies and dead silence in the office. No small talk at the elevators, no smiles in the kitchen. Just the steady hum of a company holding its breath. At 8 a.m., sharp, I got the calendar invite. Subject, Executive Review Location, Con FA, 10th floor. Attendees Martin Ellison plus SVPS. Required, Jack M., Amanda G. I showed up 10 minutes early. Amanda was already there, standing at the end of the table, flipping through a color-coded deck like it was gospel. She nodded at me like we were teammates. Martin walked in at 8:02, no tie, face unreadable. Let's keep this tight, he said. Amanda, you first. She launched into it like a campaign speech, slide after slide, bar graphs, buzzwords, patriotic colors. We've shifted to an American-first strategy, she said, pointer clicking hard against the screen. Simplified logistics, local job creation, better brand optics. The short-term gaps are manageable. Martin cut her off. Stop. She froze. He turned toward me. Jack, tell me what really happened. I opened my laptop. Sure. The first slide wasn't a graph. It was a video. Rico's plant in Osaka. Workers lining up at 6 a.m., running CNC machines rebuilt from scrap, hitting tighter tolerances than any domestic vendor we had. I clicked to the next one. Petra's factory in Bucharest, safety certified, on-time shipments for 18 straight months. Then Miguel's team in Monterrey, working triple shifts during COVID just to keep Rockwell orders flowing when U.S. vendors were shut down. These people didn't just supply us, I said. They restructured around us. I laid out supplier testimonials, upgrade photos, before and after delivery stats. Every one of them proved how much these vendors had done to meet Rockwell's standards. Then I switched tabs, contracts. I zoomed in on Clause 24 from 6 different agreements. Each vendor had the right to withdraw from service if another was dropped without cause. Amanda signed off on all of these. Here's her initials. Her approval dates. Martin leaned forward. You're saying she triggered a coordinated pullout? Yes, I said. She killed one, and the rest were contractually allowed, and emotionally ready to walk. Amanda's face drained like someone pulled the plug on her ego. Martin turned to her. Did you read these before terminating them? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her lips moved, but no words followed. He didn't wait. I'm going to ask one more time, he said, calm as a hammer. Did you read the contracts? I assumed legal reviewed. That's not an answer. She glanced at me, like I was supposed to step in, like we were still on the same side. I looked right back at her, blank. Martin leaned back, hands folded. You didn't just cancel suppliers. You blew up our entire global strategy in under 48 hours. And you're standing here pitching it like a win, Amanda tried to push back. We needed to localize. No, you needed to prove a point, he snapped. And now we're bleeding millions a day. Silence hung thick in the air. No one came to her defense. I closed my laptop. Martin stood. We're done here. Amanda stayed frozen, gripping the back of her chair like she might fall over. Martin looked at me. Stay behind. The door shut behind the others. Amanda lingered a second too long, like she might say something, then walked out. Martin dropped into a chair and ran a hand through his hair. You just saved this company from going completely off a cliff, he said. I didn't smile. Can you fix it? Yes, I said, but not with her in the room. By Tuesday morning, Amanda was in full damage control. She called an emergency meeting with legal and tried to pass the blame. These clauses should have been flagged, she said, pacing the front of the room like she still had authority. Why wasn't I warned? I was sitting near the door, arms crossed. You were. Multiple times she scoffed. Not clearly. You buried that language I pulled up her signed approvals. You initialed the fallback clauses yourself, and I've got the email where I highlighted them, time-stamped. You replied, "Looks good." Legal backed me up. Quietly, but clearly. She didn't like that. Amanda turned to Martin. Jack should have brought this to my attention in person. I did, I said. Twice. You waved me off both times. Said you don't have time for vendor whining. Martin didn't look at her. He was staring at the conference table like he was picturing it already on fire. She kept going. Jack weaponized these suppliers. He turned them against me. That's when I pulled out the final receipts. Her own words, call transcripts, meeting recordings. She called Petra's crew Euro discount junk. Told someone in ops that Miguel's plant looked like a garage. I didn't say anything dramatic. Just hit play and let her voice fill the room. Martin leaned forward, elbows on the table. What would it take to rebuild the supply chain? I answered without blinking. They'll come back. But only if Amanda's not involved. At all, Amanda's jaw dropped. Are you serious? Martin didn't respond to her. You already talked to them? I told them I'd call after this meeting. They're willing. On one condition, Amanda exploded. This is sabotage. He's manipulated these people for months. You're going to let him blackmail the company? I stood up. They turned because you made them feel like dirt. I just gave them the option to walk. She opened her mouth again, but Martin cut her off. Enough. He looked at HR. Effective immediately, Amanda's reassigned. No supplier contact. Move her to client services. She started yelling. Martin walked out. 2 days later, she was moved into a cubicle in the back corner of the 3rd floor, the one by the printer that always jammed. No team. No meetings, no reports. She didn't say a word to me. 8 months later, she resigned. No goodbye party, no flowers. Just a company-wide email that said, pursuing new opportunities. No one replied. The promotion came the next week. Martin called me into his office, shut the door, and slid the offer letter across his desk. Director of International Vendor Relations, he said. You earned it. I didn't smile, just nodded once. Thank you. New office, higher floor, better salary, title on the door. But none of that hit as hard as the emails that started rolling in from suppliers. We heard what happened. We're ready to talk. I booked flights that same afternoon. Osaka first. Rico met me at the airport himself. Shook my hand like I'd pulled him out of a fire. We sat down over hot soba, and he didn't ask for more money, just asked one question. Is she gone? Yes, I said. She won't be touching procurement again. Bucharest next. Petra was cautious, but when I showed her the new org chart, she signed the reactivation papers right there in the cafe. Miguel took longer. He'd built other deals while we were dark. I didn't push, just told him we were rebuilding, brick by brick, the right way this time. He said, I'll be there Monday. Took 6 months total. 63% of the original network came back, most of them. A few had already moved on to new deals for good. Not because we begged, because we earned it, because they saw Rockwell had finally listened. I kept things simple. Quarterly check-ins, shared wins, real human contact. We weren't just contracts anymore. We were partners. Back home, Amanda's name faded out of every conversation. You couldn't even find her name on the internal systems after HR cleared out her profile. Word was, she took a job at some regional distributor in Indiana, warehouse-adjacent office. Handles complaint calls from pissed-off truckers now. No team, no budget, no power. I never told anyone about my dad, never mentioned his name, his firm, what she'd done to him. Most of the people at Rockwell didn't even know he ever existed. Didn't matter. She knew, and I knew. The best revenge wasn't revenge. It wasn't yelling at her, or getting her fired, or rubbing it in her face. It was watching her feel that same quiet helplessness she once handed out like candy. Watching her reach for control and find nothing. My dad died, thinking no one gave a damn what happened to men like him. Decent, steady men who got tossed aside the second they weren't shiny enough. But I remembered, and I made damn sure someone finally paid for it.